Hey, I'm Alex from this family tree, as you guys know, and I am really happy to have my best friend here with me today, Veronica.
Hello.
So Veronica's here to talk with me about something that is incredibly common, happens to 1 in 4 women, but is rarely talked about, and that is miscarrying. So Veronica, do you want to give us a little backstory?
So my midwife had set me up with an ultrasound to find the date. So it was a dating ultrasound. It's basically when they measure the baby to see how far along you are. I had tracked, so I knew approximately how far along it was, but it's usually an exciting time for a parent to go in and just see their baby up on the screen for the first time. However, my situation was a little bit different. So when I went in expecting a healthy heartbeat, healthy baby, 10 weeks along, they wouldn't tell me anything. But apparently later on when I found out, it was measuring at 8 weeks. Okay. So the baby had passed 2 weeks prior to my ultrasound.
So how did that go then? What did that look like? Because usually, so I guess they'd show you. When did you know something was wrong?
I knew something was wrong when I first went in for the ultrasound. I said, can I get a photo when this is over? Because I'd heard you have to ask for a photo, so I definitely wanted that. I asked for a photo, and as we started, I had the external ultrasound done. And while that was going on, she kind of pushed the screen a little bit away, so I wasn't able to look at the screen. And then she had me go to the washroom to pee a little bit. I was too full from what she said, so we could see again. Then I went back in, had another ultrasound. That lasted another about 7 minutes. And then I had to go and pee the rest out, and we had to have a transvaginal ultrasound just to get a better image. So once that all happened, I asked when my husband was going to come in. She wouldn't say anything. She asked me to go sit back in the waiting room, where I sat, I think, for 30 minutes with Jared. And that's kind of when I knew, like, something has to be wrong. All these other husbands are going in with their wives and seeing the ultrasounds and coming out. Like, I think 4 couples came and left, and we were still sitting waiting. She then came back out in the waiting room and called me to the back, but instead of sitting me in a room, she just kind of closed the door and said, your doctor will call you, and let me go. So I walked out pretty uncomfortable. I was crying. I knew something had to be wrong. Like, this wasn't how I had pictured an ultrasound. I pictured them like the movies. And it was the most uncomfortable first experience for first ultrasound. So
that's really rough. So you and Jared have been trying to conceive since your wedding?
Yes.
Okay.
We've been trying to conceive since the wedding. We got pregnant right away. However, I found out I was pregnant, I think, on a Wednesday, and by Friday it had passed. So that was I don't know the proper term, but it's a miscarriage. I think it was a regular miscarriage. Okay. I don't know the wording. I'm not a doctor. So Jared and I got married in July. We tried right away and got pregnant right away. We found out on a Wednesday, and by Friday we had passed it naturally. It was almost like experiencing a really, really bad period. Okay. So really bad cramping. It lasted a little longer than usual. Everything was sore. Had back pain. You get the breast tenderness, and it was a very bad period.
So just along those lines, did you know, because spotting is normal in early pregnancy and implantation, did you know right away that it wasn't that it was like something different, something wrong?
I didn't right away, because at first it was spotting. So I had reached out to a family member of mine who had been through several miscarriages and just asked, is this normal? She said it was, so I wasn't worried, because it started very, very light. I went, okay, this is what I've read about. I don't have anything to worry about. But then later that night, I went to bed and I woke up and I knew. There was no way.
So then, since that one, you have suffered one more?
Yes. So after that one, we decided not to try for a couple months. So I thought I'd focus on my athletics and keep that going. So it wasn't until September when we decided, okay, we're going to try again. And then, once again, we were successful. So we've had 2 pregnancies but also 2 losses.
Yeah.
So the second miscarriage that we had, we didn't know. It was a completely different experience. I didn't try and take a test right away. I thought, okay, my stress levels are high. That's why my period's delayed. I was stressed from work, and then I also had my athletics, which also took a toll on my body. So I thought, okay, this is just delayed because I'm my high stress level.
Yeah.
So I was actually in LA at the time, and I was competing in a world championship. So when that was over, I joked all week. I'm like, my period is expected to come, and it hasn't come, but I think I'm just too stressed out. I go, it'll eventually come. Once the tournament's done, that's when my body will go back to regular. And then I just to settle my own stomach, I took a test, and it was positive. So I was very excited. And it was awesome because it was in LA, so I was able to do a little quick video to surprise my family when I got back. Jared was with me, which was also exciting. And then we'd gone, like, you do your regular stuff. I did my research, looked into everything, started getting excited with the pregnancy. I had always told myself when I would get pregnant, I would celebrate it right away. Yeah. I'm a strong believer in that if you've created a miracle, I want to celebrate it no matter what happens. I know the last miracle we created lasted a couple of days, but this time we were already about 7 or 8 weeks when I found out, so it was really exciting. So I thought, okay, we've made it double as far. I'm going to tell people. And then it wasn't until that 10-week ultrasound that I went in for the dating and found out that it was a non-viable pregnancy.
On that note, because you mentioned celebrating what you've created, and you're cut from like the same cloth as me. This is why we're best friends, because we have the same reaction to things. And I know that when Shane and I got pregnant, we told everybody right away, right? And I remember talking to you, and I was like, V, like, we're pregnant. I want to tell everybody, but like, what if something happens, right? Because that's always a fear. It's always a fear. And you told me that. You're like, Alex, like, you just created a life. Like, it's worth celebrating. You need to celebrate it. And that, I held on to that. Like, that made me so happy. And I, like, in those first few weeks when it's so stressful and so hard, you hold on to that and you celebrate what you did. And so you then, having gone through that, celebrating that life, like, it's amazing. Yeah. Do you think next time you get pregnant, like, will you take the same path, or with your experience? Yeah,
I think I'll probably celebrate it right away.
Yeah,
I think it'll be exciting to be able to be given that opportunity to conceive again. Conceiving is such a difficult thing. We've been
so hard.
Jared and I know we are extremely blessed that we've been able to conceive so quickly. So in 6 months, we've had so much happen to us, and we've been so lucky where we have friends and we know women that try over a year.
It's hard.
And it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating month by month when you get your period. Mm-hmm. Jared and I recently tried this past month. We were finally cleared to try again. And we were so excited. We were so happy just to be given that opportunity. Okay, we can finally get the show back on the road. We can look forward to our future and try and create our family. So being on such a high and so excited, the day my period came, it was the most devastating day I've experienced, I think, in my life. Like, besides finding out when we miscarried this last time, this was just almost equally as hard, because it feels like your body failed you. Like, you were so excited, you want to try again, you want to move forward, and it was just another reminder that, no, you're not ready to move forward yet. So I think thinking of that, a lot of women trying to conceive can relate to. And no one tells you that. No one tells you how hard it's going to be to try again.
They tell you not to have sex because you're going to get pregnant. Yeah. And then you go into it thinking that, and then when it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, this is what I've been learning my whole life. Like, why isn't that happening? Yeah. And you think, like, this is what your body's made for. Your body's supposed to do this. Your body's supposed to carry a baby to term. Your body's supposed to get pregnant. Like, that's my life goal, is to just create a team of children, like to field a softball team,
But it seems like that's getting delayed. I'm not sure what's happening, but I can see now the struggles that women have, and they're very quiet about it. A lot of women don't talk about it. And it's hard, and it's very hard to know what they're going through. Going through this experience myself, I find I have to talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's the only thing that helps me think positively and get me out of that dark zone that I've been in. It's just talk about it and trying to reach out to women and have people reach out to me back about their stories. Mm-hmm. It's really comforting to know that other people are having that same experience. Yeah. That other people feel the same way, and that you're not feeling a certain way that you, like, I thought, okay, I'm in this dark room with my emotions, and it's been 3 months, 2 months, 3 months since it happened, and I have those days where I'm super, super upset and super depressed about it. But then I've reached out to other women, and it's the same. So I'm not alone, and it's good to know that these feelings that you feel are normal. There's no wrong way to feel when you're trying to conceive or when you've had a miscarriage. So.
And do you find, because the hormones in pregnancy, like, they're already heightened. It's already enough, and then you throw in the excitement of getting pregnant, then the trauma of a loss. Even without our body creating hormones, that's already so difficult. So then, how long do you think, like, you're riding those super high highs, really low lows? Like, how long does, I guess, the emotional roller coaster kind of go on for? Or for you, at least?
I have no idea. I'm still on a roller coaster.
And it's been how long?
We miscarried November 6th is when I found out. So, a couple of months. Yeah. 2.5 months.
So for you, you like to talk about it.
Yep.
Which helps. Because then, too, people can be there for you. If you don't talk about it, nobody's going to be there for you. Yeah. So you cope by talking about it, right, and talking to people with shared experiences. How does your partner cope? Or do you guys try to do it together? Do you guys have different ways?
I've tried talking to him about it. He's quiet. So I think where I'm not so much vocal, but I'll write about it. And I'm not a writer, but I find if I just get my thoughts out and share it with the world, and if I get that response back that, how I feel is okay, that's the way I've been dealing with it. I think because my hormones are still in that roller coaster phase, I know postpartum's actually a thing, which I've learned after a miscarriage. So when I reached out to my sister-in-law, who's a nurse, like, she kept reassuring me, like, it's okay how you feel.
So you're getting postpartum depression.
Yeah.
When you're miscarrying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You go through. I don't know if it's the same as after you've had a child, but it's rough. It's a dark place. So Jared was very emotional at first. Mm-hmm. He turned into, he always is, but it really bonded us a little bit closer because I know how much he wanted to be a dad. Mm-hmm. He was devastated, obviously, but he's kind of taken the approach of being almost, I laugh, so he's a police officer, but now I call him the safety police. So he has almost grown more into this cautious husband. Okay. So anytime I'm doing anything, he's so, I don't know how to explain it, but he is the safety police. So everything I do all day long, he almost observes it and makes sure I'm doing it as safe as possible. So we had someone come to the door to talk about our pipes. So we have a very old house. We had just miscarried, and they came to the house saying you should test your pipes for lead. And they gave us a sheet, and on that sheet he noticed that it stated it's dangerous for women who are trying to get pregnant or are pregnant. Yeah. So immediately he booked to have the pipes replaced in the house because he knows I want my wife to be pregnant. We want to have a child. So he's booked that. He went out and bought me a filter so that I could filter the water so that I have this super clean, lead-free water. Mm-hmm. He bought me a new vehicle.
That's not bad.
He thought my Kia was too unsafe, so he upgraded us to a very safe, larger SUV. Yeah, it's beautiful. In anticipation to have a family one day. And he will literally watch me drive out of the driveway, make sure my wipers are cleaned off from all the ice. He'll clean off my car, but he has become the safety police. So I think he is dealing with it more in that way. It's not, he doesn't talk about it. I think he's moved tried to move forward and look forward and doesn't want to look in the past. Whereas I still have that connection, and I think it's because I was carrying the baby, so I still have that connection of that physical loss and how it connected emotionally as well, where he's more, okay, looking forward, how can we improve our lifestyle for the future possibilities of having family.
Yes. Now, when you talk about the loss, how do you break that to people? Because I think that's one thing that people struggle with.
The more time goes on, I do think one of the reasons women don't talk about it is because of how uncomfortable it makes other people feel.
Right.
So as much as I'm sure we'd like to, like, I love to bring it up. I love experiencing that first trimester. I loved everything that I experienced with it, so I like relating to other women that are going through that. However, it's awkward when you kind of just jump into a conversation saying, oh, when I was in my first trimester, and people might not know, and then you hit them with, oh, but I miscarried, and you seem okay with it because you've accepted it. You loved that child, you've been through that, but now it's the more you talk about it, the easier it's becoming to get through that hard time. But it's a shock to other people because I don't think they know how to respond. There is no...
It's hard. It's hard.
It's
you
not
don't
a
know what
common...
that person wants.
You don't. And what I want is 100% different from what another person wants. So it's very hard to respond to someone, and I don't like putting people in that uncomfortable situation, and I think that's what a lot of other women are kind of in that same boat. We do have friends where I've just spit it out saying, oh, by the way, I've had a miscarriage, but I'm okay right now. Like, I just to get that information out there.
Yeah.
But it silences the room. Oh. It really silences the room.
Well, because that's the thing. I think people are trying to gauge you emotionally, then they're emotional about it too, because it's a hard thing to hear about somebody that you love, or even if you don't know them, it's a hard thing to hear. And it's hard to know what to say, and I was really thankful that you felt comfortable writing about it, and you put it out there that way, because it kind of just, told everybody what happened, so that they didn't have to kind of throw all these different questions at you, and everybody was just on the same playing field. Who was it the hardest to tell?
I'm not sure who the hardest was to tell. It was just hard to tell the family. I told them right away, but I think my mom probably took it the hardest.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh God. No, I think so my mom took it the hardest, I believe, because she had 4 easy pregnancies. They came, she got pregnant easily, gave birth easily. My sister tried twice, got pregnant twice. 2 beautiful babies, and now this is the first in my immediate family where it didn't go as planned. So it was probably hard. It was hard to tell them, and they've never experienced it, so they don't even know they didn't know how to react to it. They were obviously upset, but our family's kind of strong in the sense that we don't hold on to feelings. You don't feel sad for longer than you need to. But this was different, so it was hard to tell my family 2 months later, hey, guess what? I'm still really upset about it, and I have certain triggers and certain things, I need to lock myself in a room and be alone, and I don't know, it's hard. So the reason I blog is probably mainly so they understand, because I'm not very vocal. I don't like talking about negative feelings. I like being positive all the time. So to blog and say, these are my triggers and this is why I react, I get silent probably. I will stay in my room and be completely silent and not speak to my husband, not speak to anybody, to try and get through a really hard time, and then question, why am I still feeling this way? I thought I've gotten past it. I thought I feel better about it, but I don't. So, and I'm not sure when I will feel better about it. I don't think you ever do.
Yeah.
I think there's more time in between negative episodes, but I think my biggest mission, I guess, is to try and help people learn how to react and learn how to comfort people who have been through a miscarriage.
I think that's so good, B. Why do you think it's so taboo? Is it because of like the hurt associated with it? Or?
Yeah, I think, like for me, it gets hard to talk about only because I don't want to put people in that uncomfortable situation. And then you're kind of exposing yourself and opening yourself up to being very emotional. Mm-hmm. So you're bringing up all those feelings that you had, and sometimes it might trigger you to start bawling your eyes out again. And that's maybe something you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I avoid situations where I'm like, I'm not going to bring it up. Yeah. I'm going to just completely ignore it and not bring up my experience with it and just go on, just so that I don't lose control of my emotions all of a sudden in an area, maybe like at work. Mm-hmm. I don't want to just start crying at work.
Of course.
Or even out in public. So you try and just not think about it, and it helps.
Mm-hmm. Like when you initially put out your first thing and say, okay, this is what happened, what was the initial response like?
It was so good. I was terrified.
Of course. Yeah. It's scary.
I don't write.
You did such a good job, though. You did such a good job.
I can't believe I didn't fail English growing up because I couldn't write anything. And I still can't.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's about being a good writer or a bad writer. No. I think it's just telling a story and people can listen. No one's judging you based on your grammar, except for my sister who edits my work.
She's a bitch.
She's great. She loves what I write, but she has to edit it for me. It was really hard, though, to put yourself out there and be so vulnerable.
Yeah.
I've tried to come off as this strong, positive person all the time who has all these great things happening in her life, but the reality is I failed. My body failed me. I'm upset. This is what I need to write about, just to show people almost like I've accomplished all of these goals. This was my one goal that I wanted, and I haven't accomplished it yet. So I wanted to write about it, open myself up, and almost not unknowingly get responses back from women that would later on help me through it.
Yeah.
So I did know a couple women that I had reached out to during the time it was happening, but when I posted my first blog, the response from men and women, so I haven't heard any men's side of the stories, but just reaching out, good friends and family just to support me, but a lot of women came over and messaged or text me. Even I've met up with a couple just to tell me their stories. Yeah. And I had no idea how many people in my circle of friends and family had been through something that's very similar, who have struggled for years. And it almost was nice because sometimes certain things happened a couple years ago. For them to relive that story, it was so emotional, and we'd both be crying on both sides of our phones about what happened. And you truly realize, like, you don't get over something like this. Like, you just have to try and stay positive and think of and find ways to, look forward to the future. But you're always gonna remember what happened. Like, that was my baby. Technically, a lot of girls had messaged me because one of my blogs I wrote, one day I do look forward to be called a mother. Like, I want to be called a mother one day. That's my goal. And I had one girl reach out. She's like, "You are a mom. Like, you've had a baby. Like, it was unfortunate that it didn't make it, but she's like, your baby's looking down on you, and like, you're a mom." It's like, you know what? That's actually like so nice. But it's a very supportive, quiet community.
It's quiet.
So, yeah.
It's funny. Sorry, but it's funny because you said, you had a huge outpouring of people reaching out and people wanting to talk.
Yeah. They want
to. Like, they want to. Yeah. If they're provided that one outlet, people will talk. And that's almost like, from what I've seen too, from talking with the girls that I know, they all, like, that's the only thing they want to do.
Yeah.
It's hard.
So it's such a hard time in your life, so I don't know if that's why maybe eventually I'll get more quiet about it, just so that I don't have to bring up these emotions as much, but I really wish a lot of more women spoke up, just because my story is my story. So I blog about what happened to me, and it, like I said before, it is so different from every single other miscarriage. There's no miscarriage that's the same. The process of it all, there's so many different obstacles involved. The way there's different types of having so with a miscarriage, you can go through the medication process, or you could have the D&C. There's so many different outcomes with that as well. So every miscarriage and every story that I've heard is completely different from one another. Some last longer, some are really quick.
Yeah.
By really quick, it's not quick, but quicker than expected. Some are more painful. Some you have more of an emotional, more emotional trouble with. So they're just completely different.
I want to kind of touch on that. So when you first told us about it, like we have a girl chat group, and you were telling us all about it in the chat group. You were talking about how your doctor may not have handled the first miscarriage properly, and I had no idea what that even meant, to handle it properly.
And neither did I.
So what is that? Like, what happens after you miscarry?
So there's so many different steps. In my personal experience, after my second miscarriage, the first miscarriage, so hard to say. After the latest miscarriage, the first thing they wanted to do was a lot of blood work, which I was like, this never happened after the first time. So I wasn't sure why they wanted to do all this blood work. It's not something I had done. The first one, my doctor said it will pass naturally. Just let your body take its course and you'll be fine and you should be back on track. And I was. My body, to me, seemed like it went back to a regular cycle and nothing seemed to be wrong. After this time, the doctors were a little bit curious as to why I didn't do blood work. I guess if you have a certain blood type, you need to get an injection.
So regardless of when the miscarriage happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's supposed to be done right away, but I guess you're supposed to get some type of injection.
Do you have that blood type?
No.
Okay.
So that's why they thought, okay, like, you were fine. Like, that wasn't a concern. I guess that could have been linked to why something went wrong this time. But it wasn't. It ended up being okay. It was just a fluke, is what they said. No woman ever accepts that answer, and I'm still trying to accept it. But it was a fluke. There's nothing in my lifestyle, I guess, that they said caused it. If it was, it would have passed earlier on, because I asked them, I said, oh my gosh, I was playing in a tournament and I was taking Tylenol and I was doing all this other stuff and having too much caffeine, and they said if it was that, it would have passed away a long time ago. So it wasn't, which that was my biggest concern. So there's two procedures that I know of that I was informed of for a miscarriage that wasn't passing naturally.
Okay.
So when my midwife called, the first step was she told me what happened and then let me know, okay, you have a couple of options. You can wait and let it pass naturally, if it should, but she said because it's already been 2 weeks, the longer you wait, the more prone to infection you could be if it doesn't pass naturally. The second thing was to book an appointment for a week down the road to then start the process of having to abort the baby. And then the third was to go to the ER right away. So I didn't want to wait because I couldn't bear going another day to work and acting like things were okay when they weren't. So I went to the emergency. I ended up waiting there all day, did blood work, did a urine test, all of that. They set me up the next day for an ultrasound just to confirm. Then I had another ultrasound to confirm. And then I met with the OB who gave me the two options. So the one option was less invasive. That's called Misoprostol. So it's a medication that you insert this is where it's funny, because, not funny, but some women are told to insert it vaginally and some orally.
Okay.
Mine was to insert it vaginally. Then there's also a D&C. So that's more invasive, and it's a medical procedure. So you'd be in the hospital. I haven't done it. I didn't really look into it too much, but I know it's harsher on your body, so I decided to go with the more natural way. Misoprostol basically induces labor.
Okay.
So when I got home, Jared and I were told, okay, when you insert, you do you do 4 pills. So when we got home,
so you're expected to then induce labor at 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when the doctor tells you about it, they just prescribe you medication. They kind of give you a brief overview of what it's going to be like, and then send you home for you to do it yourself. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to induce bleeding is what was going to happen. So when I got home, we waited till the next morning because we knew it could be about a 16-hour process, so we didn't want to do it later that night and then have to wait all night.
Oh my God.
Super uncomfortable. So in the morning I woke up, and no one tells you how hard it is to start the process. You'd think, okay,
what do you mean start
just
the process? Like to put it in?
Yes.
Is it not like putting in a tampon?
Emotionally,
it's sorry, I didn't even think that. Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
No,
I thought you just meant physically. See, and this is the thing. Like I wouldn't even consider.
Exactly. Physically, it's easy. You're just.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
Emotionally,
that's awful.
The only thing that was going through my head was I'm literally. This is horrible to say, but in my head I was saying I'm killing my baby by doing this. And I was so against it, and I didn't want to do it. But I had to. Jared kept reassuring me, like, it has to be done. The baby has passed away. There's no heartbeat. You have to do this. And I couldn't. I was laying there. I think I waited an hour and a half, and I wanted my husband to do it for me because I couldn't bear doing it myself. Yeah. But then I couldn't. It was the worst. I couldn't let him near me. I kicked him out of the room, and eventually... after I think 2 hours was able to do it and just cried.
You almost just want the doctors to do it.
I wish they did. I really wish that they would do it for you. Yeah. There's no way, and strap you down, because as soon as you know someone's going to put something in you that's going to remove that baby from you, because you already hold that, like you feel, pregnancy feels really good. You feel good. You have that baby growing inside you. You don't want anything to happen to it, and you become so protective that knowing that you're going to have to get rid of it is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And it was hard, and it took 2 hours to convince myself that you have to do it or else my health's at risk. So it was tough. I laid in bed and just cried the entire 2 hours of knowing I had to do it, and continued crying, I think, for 4 more hours. Yeah. And just laid there like a zombie, not knowing what was going to happen. I knew I was told there'd be some cramping, you'd be uncomfortable, it's going to induce labor. I've never been through labor, so I don't know what that's going to feel like.
And you don't know from what you've heard, how that's going to compare to 10 weeks. Like, you don't know what's going to be the same, what's going to be different.
So I had reached out to some family who had been through it. So they've also taken the Misoprostol, 2 completely different situations. Right. And then I reached out to another friend who'd also done it. And that's another 3 different stories and 3 different outcomes of how it's gone. So I had no idea what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I was told by the doctor, okay, in about 2 to 4 hours you should start cramping, and it's going to be pretty bad. So here's some painkillers, which I had, and I wasn't feeling anything. It had probably been, I think, 4 hours, and I finally stood up because I got my wedding photos that day. Which was kind of funny, but it was a perfect day to get my wedding photos back because I needed something happy to look at. Yeah, so Jared and I were looking through the photos, and I got up to go to the washroom and just fell to the floor, cramping so hard.
Did it just like hit like that, like out of nowhere? Or?
Out of nowhere. Just immediate contractions that just wouldn't let up. It was almost... from what I know is when women start getting contractions, there's time in between each one, and then they slowly get closer and closer together. It was almost like a reverse labor, where immediately the contractions were like constant, and I couldn't move, and it was the most severe pain I'd ever been in, and I started throwing up. I was sick. I couldn't move from my bed. I had hot packs on my back. Jared was bringing me food, and it lasted for 3.5 hours, and then I eventually passed out. And I know you're not supposed to. They say if you pass out, you're supposed to go to the emergency. But I did, and Jared just pretty much let me sleep it off. And I
no
woke
wonder,
up.
I have to say, like, no wonder he's taken on this role of, like, your protector, because that would be so hard to see your partner going through.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do. Like,
he was on the phone constantly with his sister, and then with one of my family members constantly talking, like, is this normal? Is this okay? Should she be going through this for this long? And after I had woken up, they were still there, but I had a break in between each one, so I could come up for air.
Yeah.
And that probably lasted another day. It felt like it lasted forever. So then it says after about 16 to 18 hours, you should start bleeding and passing clots and passing the baby. Nothing happened. So when I called the doctor, they said, well, we gave you a second dose. You can do it again. Like, there was no way I wanted to do that to myself again. I couldn't do it. The first time was so painful. I could not do it again. I'm like, Jared, this, and he goes, you have to try it again. We have to get this out of you. So the second morning when I woke up, I almost was numb. Like, my brain, I just shut down. It was easier to put them in. I just stopped thinking, and I was just so sad that it was it just seemed like, okay,
You've already started it.
Yeah, it's already happened. It's going. Just do it. Get the second round over with. Completely different.
Yeah.
The second round was completely different. I felt nothing. There was no cramp, like mild cramping. I was still puking, but it wasn't from pain. I don't even know what the puking was from. But it wasn't as painful as the day before. But I still hadn't started bleeding. So I had to call the doctor again. I'm like, okay, day 2, like, I still haven't started passing all the clotting and the blood and the baby and all of that. So she prescribed me a third dose to take in a couple of days. So they wanted to see maybe it's just going to be delayed. So I had waited. That late evening, I had started the bleeding process. This is the part where the bleeding starts. The doctor just says, and then you'll start clotting and bleeding, and that might last who knows how long, between 4 to 6 days, and then we'll kind of gradually slow down. But they don't warn you about what that bleeding is. They don't warn you that, oh, that bleeding, you're going to pass your baby. And at that point, your baby could be visible. And I've spoken to women who have passed and seen their baby, so they definitely suggest don't look. They don't, no one ever tells you how hard it is, not physically, but emotional. This whole process, it's as painful as it is physically, it is so painful emotionally. You have to basically go 2 or 3 days passing clots, knowing that you have to flush your baby down the toilet. And to me, every time I went to the washroom, cried, and I couldn't look. And my husband was there, telling me, don't look, just flush, don't think about it, because the doctors literally just expect you to. I don't know if they expect this to be okay, but it's not. It's really, really hard. You're literally flushing your baby down like a fish, like it's not. It's so hard to think that you are literally just discarding it in that way. It seems so horrible to me, but that's the part that I struggled with the most. I could deal with the physical pain. The physical pain was what it was, but that actual part where the baby was passing now was the hardest part, which stuck to me, and it kept reliving it in my brain over and over again, and that was probably the hardest part to get past, knowing that's what I did.
Okay, so you were saying, like, when the cameras were off, you were like, oh, I don't know if I should say that. It's really horrific, and then people are going to have an even harder time going through it or talking about it. But I disagree, and I think it's so good that you are talking about it, because you came on here, and when we had been working towards doing this chat, you said, I want other people to know what the person going through the miscarriage is going through, so that they can be there to provide the support. And I think that so many times in the world that we live in, women are expected, whether it's you just had a baby, whether it's you just miscarried, it's all right, like event done, move on to the next thing. You just had your baby. Okay, is your house clean yet? Like, are you back in shape yet?
Yeah.
Okay, you just miscarried. All right, so sorry, but like, you know, that project's still due on Monday, and all this, and you're expected to just like slip right back into things. But people don't know what you're going through. People don't know, because it can last weeks, right? Like that bleeding phase can last weeks.
It can last, I was told, after that initial like clotting, the clotting could last up to 4 to 6 days. Then you can bleed up to 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh my God.
But almost everyone that messaged me in the sweetest way possible said, how are you? Like, how was it? As if it wasn't still happening, but how would you know? Yeah. Like, no one knows, oh, maybe it's a 1-day process. You're in and out of the doctor's office. Like, maybe it's just like having a regular period. Yeah. No one actually knows the full experience, continues. Like how long it lasts, how every woman's different. Yeah. So my biggest thing is to help people understand, like, it's not how was it, like you go through it for so long. The physical miscarriage lasts months. And then it technically doesn't end until you are cleared to try again. So then maybe once you can try again, I think that the physical miscarriage, that's finally done. So my miscarriage, this last one, technically went from November 6th until January.
God.
So, and I got lucky. I was told, okay, your bleeding is going to last this long, 6 to 8 weeks. You might not have your next period for another 6 to 8 weeks. So just prepare yourself that this is going to be a really long process before you can try again. And I don't know how I got so lucky, and I'm seriously so blessed that I got my period exactly on schedule, which was so odd to me that my body just went right back to kind of how it's supposed to. So it's almost like my body wants to try again. And maybe like all of my positive thinking and me being able to write about it and de-stress and keep myself out of that depression helped me, and my body regulate itself again. So.
Oh my God. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you think is like crucial? Because I think we've touched on a lot, and I know that we touched on anything that we talked about before.
Jared laughs at me because Jared's my husband, but he calls me a light switch. So I can be up here super excited, super happy, and then it's the smallest, tiniest little thing will have me curled up in bed in a fetal position for a full day.
I can only imagine.
So there has been times where, and it's almost uncomfortable. So one of the situations that when I went back to work initially, so I was off for 3 weeks, which you'd think was a long time, but it was basically just enough time for me to get out of diapers. Yeah. I survived in diapers for 3 weeks. And
so that, like post-pregnancy diapers.
Yeah, like giant pads. You feel. Actually, I should talk about is how disgusting you feel. Like you feel disgusting going through a miscarriage, and I'm sure it's very similar after you have a baby. You live in giant diapers. Like you live in a diaper. You wear sweatpants. You can't wear anything tight because it'll show. That was probably the hardest thing to get through as well, was trying to not lose my self-confidence. Mm-hmm. I had come so far from last year. I lost 50 pounds. I feel great. And now all of a sudden I feel so horrible, and I feel like I can't even look at my husband, and I don't want him to look at me because I'm still showing a bump. And the tiniest little bloated bump, because you don't really show by 10 weeks. But you can tell. You feel bloated. Yeah. You can see, like, this isn't how I normally hold myself. Yeah. And then once you're going through that, all you see in the mirror every day when you wake up is this empty bump that's still there, reminding you of what you've just been through. And you're wearing a big pad that's showing through your pants, and you don't want to go out in public. You don't want to do your hair. You don't want to do your makeup. You just feel disgusting about everything that's happening to your body, and to try and stay confident and know, like, your husband still loves you no matter what you look like. That's probably was the toughest part. Yeah, I'm not usually that self-conscious. I'm self-conscious, like as people are. Yeah, on a regular, but I don't know if it was the hormones that just made me a crazy woman. I felt crazy, and I would message people like, is this normal? Is it normal to feel this horrible about myself? I didn't even have time to process really what had happened, but what was happening to me physically was taking a huge toll on my self-confidence, and I just went and fell into a depression, and that whole period I was off work, I basically just stayed in bed. I didn't want to move. I felt disgusting. I didn't want my husband to touch me. It was hard to go through that and know, like, okay.
And then to hop into the vibe of, well, let's try again. Got to feel sexy. Got to do all these things.
Yeah.
Got to feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard.
Yeah, that was tough. Going back to work was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to tell people why I was off for 3 weeks. So I think the rumor was that I was on either a stress leave or I was just sick with a stomach bug for 3 weeks.
I think both are correct, though. It's stressful.
It
is. Kind of our thing.
It is. So it was almost weird going back to work, not wanting to tell people right away. I didn't want to tell everybody. It wasn't.
You're not close with them. They don't need to know.
No. Yeah. I was still trying to deal with it myself because I hadn't gone through it. Mm-hmm. I hadn't been able to emotionally process it yet. So I'm technically back to work trying to emotionally process it and still not knowing what my triggers are. I was a little bit worried. Yeah. So I sat at my desk and I kept myself kind of a hermit to my cubicle. I didn't go out and speak to people every day. I almost felt awful that I was trying to be so quiet and almost invisible until I realized like how my body would react and how I'd emotionally react. And then once, like, I had told a few close friends, and the hardest part, I think, for me is expressing to other people. I love when I hear success stories about other people. Yeah. So if other people are pregnant, I'm genuinely so excited for them, and I'm so happy because I know how hard it is. Mm-hmm. I know how hard it is for people to get pregnant and to conceive, though we haven't had issues conceiving, but I know how hard it is to have a baby. Yeah. So it gets a little awkward when people know what's happened to you and you are excited about other people who have this great news, and you feel like the eyes are on you. Like you feel like these people are staring at you, and in your head you are excited. How do you come across excited and like
genuinely excited without them thinking you're faking it or something?
I don't want to think I'm faking it because I'm not, and I just
you kind of stuck though. Yeah,
it's
no winning.
It's such an uncomfortable situation for you because you want to express that you're excited, be very truthful about it. You want it to come across as real because it is real. Yeah. But then you constantly are thinking in your head, these people know what I've been through. They probably think I'm faking it, and I'm really upset. Or I'm not happy that they're pregnant. When you are like, no, I don't think there's a single woman out there who isn't happy for another woman who gets pregnant. And if there is, I don't want to be friends with them.
Yeah, I hope you're not following me.
No, please don't follow me if you aren't excited for the miracle of life. I know it's hard for people. It's very hard, but you have to be excited for other people.
You do.
But it's sad. So when I was at work, we did have a couple women announced that they were both due when I'm not joking, on my due date. And I was so excited for them, but at the same time, as I showed I was super excited, I did have to walk away because I had to process I can't be in that same like it would have been so much fun to be due all in June. So that was sad to know I can't experience that journey with them, and that knowing eyes are on you. It's uncomfortable. I will. Yeah. I know I will. So it's almost like you're sad for yourself for what's happened to you, but you are so, so happy for other people. And I love surrounding myself with babies. And this is my person. Maybe other people are different. I immediately wanted to be surrounded with babies. And that's where I found my comfort, is that I constantly went and hung out with my niece and nephew. When we flew home to Nova Scotia, I hung out with my niece and I met my new nephew, and it was so, so comforting just being surrounded with them. And kids are genuinely the sweetest humans. My little niece is 3, and the day she found out, so she was very excited that she was going to have a little cousin, and would always tell me, she was very cautious about my belly all the time. We would be playing, and she would refuse to lay on. Her uncle. Yeah, she would refuse to lay on my stomach. Would never go near it because she'd say, "Nope, the baby's there. I don't want to hurt the baby." I'm like, "You're not going to hurt the baby. Like it's protected." But she refused to touch my belly or go anywhere near it. But the day I had told my sister that we lost the baby, she broke the news to Adley just because she didn't want Adley to. We didn't want to lie to her.
Of course, yeah.
And as hard as it is telling how do you even tell a 3-year-old?
I couldn't begin.
What's happened? But they have their mind of their own. So she immediately started talking about how, and my sister caught it on camera, but immediately started talking about how my baby is now playing with the fairies up in heaven, and she's an angel and playing with the fairies. And it was just like, it's the one thing that I held on to that got me through the whole process of doing the medication and going through that process of aborting the baby, was just holding on to her, thinking about how she was so positive about it.
And it's very intuitive, too. And like that's really sweet, yeah.
It was so cute. And the kids say the darndest thing. And they honestly bring you the most comfort. So surrounding myself with them and their happiness and their purity was just so good for me.
Yeah.
I don't, my own way of almost helping myself is to just be surrounded with kids, which I know other people might be total opposite. They might need a break and not want to be with that because it will bring
trigger.
That might be their trigger.
Triggers, yeah.
Yep. I want to be around them. Like, I love them. So, yeah, don't know where I'm going to go with that.
Well, that's like the sweetest thing I've heard, first of all.
Oh, she's so cute.
So, Veronica, thank you for, and I feel so ignorant in a lot of this, just not knowing things. Like,
you shouldn't feel, it's not ignorance.
But I really appreciate you coming on to not just, be a source of knowledge for anybody watching this, but also for me. I really appreciate that, and for sharing, because it's so freaking hard.
It is. Like, people who've been through miscarriage, we know how we feel. We know what we're going through. It's more of kind of making others more aware of what someone's going through and how different each experience is from each other, and how common it is.
Well,
it's incredibly common, and it's not talked about. So.
But for that, and I think that just goes to show, even though you're going to have moments where you're not, and you definitely don't feel strong, you are so strong. And coming on here to talk about it, and just being a voice for the people that you have reached out to, being that connector where other people can share their stories, like, that is an incredibly brave and strong thing for you to do. So I am so proud of you.
As brave and strong as it helps me. So it doesn't even come off that I'm being brave or strong. It's just something that's helped me, is to just be vocal about it, or vocal behind my words when I write about it. So.
Of course, yeah. Well, if you want to follow along with Veronica's continuing journey, if you want to reach out for somebody to talk to,
yes,
please go and keep up with her story. You can get a hold of her blog at veronicabaird.wordpress.com, and I will link that below, so you know how to spell everything. But Veronica, thank you honestly so much. I'm so grateful that you were able to do this and agreed to do it and wanted to do it. That's amazing. But thank you so much from me, and I can guarantee from anybody that will be watching this in the future. Thank you so much. You are amazing. She's amazing. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.